Hey guys, this is Joe. Today I want to introduce you to our partner Vanta. Achieving ISO 27001 or SOC 2 compliance can unlock major growth for your company and build customer trust, but the process can be time intense and costly. Vanta automates compliance, getting your audit ready quickly and saving up to 85% of associated costs. And Vanta scales with your business, helping you enter new markets. Join 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora that trust Vanta. Claim 20% off Vanta at vanta.com/startupradio. That's vanta.com, spelled vanta.com/startupradio.
Welcome to Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast, YouTube blog, and internet radio station from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, bringing you news and interviews in English. Today we have another installment in our series of entrepreneurship tools. This will be the first video of the 2-video series together with Silke. Hey Silke, how you doing?
Hello, Joe. I'm excellent. Thank you very much.
That is great. And my understanding is you're currently joining us from Dubai?
Yes. Springtime in Dubai becoming warmer now.
My understanding is in Dubai there are 2 seasons, hot and very hot.
No, there's actually like something like in wintertime, it can become a little bit cold, like 10 degrees in the evening, which is quite cold for Dubai. Yeah, it can become quite like chilly in the evening times. Yeah.
For American audience, that means 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, right? And we will be talking today about making better decisions as an entrepreneur. And in the first podcast interview, we will be discussing the psychological game of entrepreneurship. We already talked a lot about this before, but nonetheless, we have like a half a paragraph of topics we want to cover, and everything else is completely free flowing. So, would you first like to introduce yourself a little bit, what you're doing, and how we ended up here together in the recording?
Yes, please. Yes, my name is Silke Glab. I'm a psychologist. I'm a leadership coach. So the combination is I focus more on the psychological side of leadership, and I also advise on performance. Yeah, and how I ended up with you, I applied for your podcast. And we had discussions, like preparatory discussions, to find out what your audience could benefit from.
Yes, and you can attest we're not making shit up as we go. We do have some preparation going on here.
Yes.
Great. We want to talk about today about the psychological game of entrepreneurship. I have been doing a lot about that in the other podcast I'm co-hosting with Michelle. Mental high five to Michelle here. In a podcast called Starting Why, which is currently paused, but I still want to pick it up because I do understand a lot of entrepreneurs, if they're VC funded, if they're not, if they have employees or if they have not, if they're freelancers or gig workers, that doesn't really matter. But a lot of those people are under stress in the technology sector. And we want to talk about today some ideas, some methodologies, some approaches, how you could navigate this stress, high workload, and all the expectations coming with it, and all the entrepreneurs right now in C-level positions who are VC funded. I know. Okay, let's get to the point.
Yeah, so let's talk about how to navigate the pressure. And I'm quite realistic now, yeah, because if you go and Google, you find all these nice approaches, what you're supposed to do. But I also have clients who are really under pressure, especially also nowadays with all the market changes. So I try to make it really applicable for people. And the most important thing I always discuss is your workload and to strategize which are really high yielding activities and which are low yielding activities. Because you will find out if you really sit down and prioritize what you as a CEO or entrepreneur or founder, your core things that you should do, if you list them down and you list also down what other activities you're doing, if you make that step, you will realize that you're also doing a lot of low yielding activities. And with low yielding, I mean, they don't contribute to your efficiency or to what you want to achieve as an organization and with you in the position as the CEO. Yes. Yeah.
I personally have some experiences with that. For example, I used to spend like almost all morning in all my emails and all my social media. And then I wrote up an extensive to-do list, which I never could go through in like one day. That's why I try to set realistic expectations, and I have to manage with all the things going on right now around me with my family, especially with the guests, accommodate them. And so I've come down to something like a to-do list, having 5 or 10 points for a whole week. And every time I could not go through my to-do list, it really, really stressed me out. And what really actually helped me is simple tools to share content on social media, to build up a backlog, like 2, 3 times a month, getting content in there, and then simply let it work its magic.
Yes. Or nowadays you find even virtual assistants who can do that very easily for a very good price. Then also really like when you're in a CEO position, you may have meetings that are not really on your level anymore. And you spend a lot of time in meetings that are not your core, that can be done by other people too. That's really the very, very most important task.
The personal experience here, because that's also something I personally experienced, because I'm working with Calendly, and in the early days of me being a freelancer and entrepreneur, basically people could book all over the place. And that really did not work for me because I could never really plan my week or maybe even the day, because I was not sure when somebody would be booking something. So what I do right now, I have 2 days a week in the afternoons where people can book with a link I give out quite freely. That's where people can schedule a call. And all the other times I am either directly working for my clients, or I do have slots where my clients can book. So that is something I arrange for myself in terms of meetings, because otherwise you have a day with like 15 meetings in one day. You didn't get anything done and nothing useful came out of any of them. And that is quite stressful. So I try to reduce them personally and have only like 2 days where I actually do those kind of online meetings.
Yeah. And here I want to refer back to your list. There are quite interesting tools online which are based on agile management, which is, for example, Trello. There are other apps. And here you can create like a list of really high priority items. And then you can move them into another column, which is then I'm working on it. And then you can move them into I've done it, or I put them on hold. This is really excellent to have a visible workflow of the things that you're doing. It's really, since I also came across it, it's not only you're very conscious what kind of activities you're even writing in. Then you choose which ones you're working on currently. So that's also right now there, because sometimes you still have to wait for a response of someone else. You're maybe not working in isolation. So you have put it into currently done. But then you can see, okay, it's still in my currently working on it because I'm still waiting for a response. And this is where you may have to follow up. Yeah, it really gives a great overflow. And if the thing is done, you get a little bit of dopamine reward when you push the file into I've done it. So that's concerning the first step.
Do you know there are multiple tools you can use like Notion, ZenKit, Monday, and so on and so forth. But what really triggers me here is when he said this little dopamine spike is, you remember Wunderlist? Every time you checked off something of this to-do list, bling, it gave this
No,
very
this
awesome
one
sound, and
doesn't bling. It's,
it always gave me
yeah, no,
a spike.
this one is.
Wonderful.
So this work is you just move it into the column of done. So there's no bling, there's nothing. So it's for adults. Yeah.
Okay.
Another one is what you said, you structure already with your Calendly. You also said focusing time. So the first and foremost, your work structure has maybe the following things you really need to work deeply and very focused on an issue. There is maybe a part you have to be creative and brainstorming. Another thing that you need to follow up all your emails. And then you have meetings and breaks. So what I always recommend is, some people, they're very fresh, more fresh in the morning, that you allocate 1.5 hours, if possible, where you do really deep work. This means no distraction, phone aside, no phone distraction, not looking at the phone, looking really in a narrow corner, because what you want to have is really a very narrow focus. And in this time, you will really see, I started that maybe half a year ago, that I allocate time for myself. And I know during this time, I set an alarm, 90 minutes. I have my 90-minute sprint. Sometimes I take 2 hours because it takes a little bit time to come into it. But in this time, I don't do anything else. And this is when you're a CEO or entrepreneur, that's really your asset. This is when you have to go through contracts. You have to do really organizational stuff. Someone told me, yeah, I even hang out a shield, like a sign, not to be interrupted. And even you should not interrupt yourself with looking at the phone or checking your emails. And for a lot of people, this time is mostly the first part of the day before meetings and whatever are starting.
For
Then
me
they,
personally, I had the experience also when working a corporate job or right now. Not only you should not look on your phone, but what's also very distracting, those little see-through emails that pop
yeah,
on the lower screen. Turn off your email, turn off your messenger, your Slack,
yes,
everything.
yes,
That is
yes.
very important. I found this very good because then, as you said, you can get more done in 90 minutes than like in a whole day with all those distractions. But what happened to be in the beginning, make sure you don't have any scheduled meetings during this time, because I tended to forget them. Sorry to all the people I have
Yeah.
forgotten during that time.
So that's really, so if you manage 90 minutes, this would be great. If you manage 50 minutes, also great. But have that really as a separate slot. Then there is time for meetings. A lot of meetings maybe not so necessary. And here I refer to agile management tools again. So they have these stand-ups. You're not even sitting up. You have concerning a certain topic. Everybody briefly reports on what they're working on and where there may be some hindrances that can be solved. And that's it. If any other issues are coming up, you may schedule one-on-ones to make it really efficient, because some meetings, until everybody is in the boardroom and whatever, you have already lost a lot of time. So think also about it, about stand-up meetings, not sitting in a boardroom where people, instead of reading through lots of emails or Slacks, that you just, everybody says, okay, here I am, I'm doing this, blah, 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 and that's it. That's also a very important point. Another one, I always say, maybe checking on emails later in the afternoon or later in the morning, sorry, when your focus is now starting to diminish. Yeah. Then go into email checkup and also allocate a time slot for that if possible, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then maybe you have someone, just the same,
Yeah.
let me finish that briefly. Maybe you have a assistant or whatever that this person can already prioritize out for you. Or I recently heard from someone that she is always, when an employee puts reply, it puts reply to all. And then she, as the leader, gets all the reply to all messages that are not even relevant to her. So be also aware if you're also getting emails, reply to all, and it's not necessary for you to get them. And also allocate a time. So Joe, please.
Yeah, and my personal experience is also that many people do tend cautiously or unconsciously allocate those focused times. I've seen the pattern that's not representative, but I've seen the pattern that many higher level corporate employees tend to come in pretty early in the office, so there's a good time to reach them in the office between 7 and 9 because they always show up early and they can structure the day. On the other hand, entrepreneurs, and me personally, myself, that goes well with my biorhythm, we are more the people who come into work again after dinner. Well, for me, it's just going to another room. And then I can be really, really productive. And within 2 hours, I can work through a lot more than on a normal busy day.
Yeah.
That's what I
And
do. So
yeah,
meaning
you have to
you should
find your
listen to your
time.
body as he said exactly what suits you. Is it the morning? Is it the afternoon? Or is it straight after lunch? Also works.
Yeah, for some, I doubt that for many. If you don't eat during lunch and you do intermediate fasting, your focus may be still on. But after a carbohydrate meal, I don't think that you're so focused. Yeah, so it's very important for this one. And then there's maybe a time of creativity, which I mean, brainstorming time, where you have to have more like a divergent thinking, like the very focused, your focus is literally like this, and you may look at a plain wall. And if you're in a creative mode, then your focus is really wide. It's panoramic. You may look at all the clutter. You may look out of the window to get inspirations. And for a lot of people, that's somewhere in the afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
that you have
also for
some
me.
time where you can think about a new methodology, parts of a new product, where you don't need to decide on something. It's more to allow all kinds of ideas coming to the surface. And then it's very important, and I hear it from so many people, they say they don't have time for breaks. They're running from one meeting to the other one. As I said, consider if you have to participate in all the meetings, have a closer look at it. It's very important. Your brain can't be active 24/7. And when you're switching tasks, like from your focusing time, going now into meetings or have the time for your emails, before you go into another working task, just take 5 minutes to ground yourself. This can be just breathing in and out, looking at your pen, be very curious about your pen, maybe go to the window, get some fresh air. If you have a longer break, like 20 minutes, then you may go outside, you walk around the building just to get some sun, get some fresh air. This is really helping you tremendously because then your brain can reset itself. And if you remember school, there was always a break in between. So between lessons, there was like 5 minute break, maybe just let time until the teacher comes or transitioning into another classroom. And this is for a reason. And after like 3 lessons, then there was the break for lunch. Yeah. And it's made because we are humans. We are not a machine that can run 24/7. So we have biological needs, and our budget is our body, and it needs to be replenished.
Mhm.
Yeah. These are
Personal
like
experience
how
here.
you can
Yeah.
structure your day.
Personal experience for me is what I realized after working for 1.5 years just in the office, just in our apartment. I realized that I was getting more and more tired, and what really helped me is after lunch, I take a walk. Something like only 20, 30 minutes. There's a park nearby, there are some fields nearby. Just taking a walk that helps me against like this downtime you have after normal lunch. Plus, it also helps me to get out to get some fresh air and some sun, which I don't do otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. And often you will realize when you're walking outside, these moments of eureka are often coming. Yeah. So these aha moments. Yeah. Where something had been thinking about a certain issue for a long time, and out of sudden it all accumulates to the idea. And this comes when you're very relaxed. Yeah. When you're more like divagant thinking in that moment, it comes. Okay. So we are there with our work structure. We have the workload. Another thing is also activities. Yeah, you already said after lunch, you go for a quick walk. That's the easiest thing. Some people, they say, I don't have time for workouts. There are these very short, high intensity workouts that you can do after work. You can do it before work. If you're not sweating too much, you can also do it during work. There are these, there's a name. So they're only 4 minutes. I had it in my mind. Tapita, tapata, something like this. Tapata
I
workouts. It will come.
okay.
Yeah. So
I
these are
I
like
don't know.
4 minute workouts where you are on high intensity for 40 seconds or 50 seconds. And then you have 10 seconds downtime. And then again, another tapeta workouts. It's really, really interesting. So you do this jumping chucks, yeah. You do other things, and they really refresh you. And it's just done in 4 minutes. If you want to go a little bit higher, you do 8 minutes.
What I yeah.
Tapeta workouts.
What I personally do to give another perspective is, especially during winter, I don't have a treadmill. It's only made for walking. It's like a walk mill, if that's
Yeah,
a thing. And I have a height adjustable table, so I pull up the table as high as possible. And in the mornings, I walk 30, 40, 50 minutes on this treadmill, just walking and reading the emails at the same time.
Interesting. Be careful that you don't fall. Yeah. So these are
That's
really,
why it's not fast.
yeah, these are great workouts. Some people, they like stretching exercises.
Mhm.
Nowadays, you have all these apps and they're mostly just 12 minutes long. I have seen so many. They offer high intensity, yoga, Pilates, whatever. And the advantage is that they're very short, like 12 to 15 minutes, and you don't need to go to the gym. Another thing is also meals. So I had also female entrepreneurs or females in higher positions, and they were still cooking at home. And then they wondered that they don't have time for their kids. And then I said, I guess you have a quite good income. This also applies for men, by the way, who are cooking at home and you actually don't have the time, but you need a nutritional meal. I guess you have a quite good income and you could afford someone who cooks or keeps the household for you.
Personal experience here. I love to cook because it's also very relaxing for me. I don't do it 5 or 7 times a week. I maybe do it once or twice a week. That takes a lot of work from my wife, and I enjoy to do it with my sons, even on a working day. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I work from home. I can take off 30, 40, 50 minutes for cooking together with my sons. And then I'm very close to a heart attack with them. And, but it also relaxes me and it helps them to also understand how to cook, and it makes a nutritional meal.
And for some people, for them, it's unfortunately only stress. And then if you're like a single, there are nowadays also caterers who offer really healthy nutritional food delivered to your doorstep. Yeah. And you can even say what kind of diet you're following. So that's also some things. And use then the time to socialize, meeting up with friends or like-minded people. Like if you're an entrepreneur, maybe an entrepreneurial group, or you're founder, like circles of people who go through similar things and have an understanding what you're going through. So
Mhm.
that's concerning all the stress and pressure someone has. And of course, my top choice is sleep. Sleep is not an overrated, it's often an underestimated target. There's a reason why our body needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And high performers, if they're entrepreneurs, Elon Musk is not a role model here. But most people who are very successful, they take 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you want to perform at your highest, then 7 to 8 hours is really a must. And there are some hacks. They are not actually biological hacks to surpass sleeping, but there are some things to make it easier for you to sleep. For example, try to get sunlight early in the morning. Okay, in Europe, in wintertime, it's often difficult. You may have to be outside longer. For me, it's very easy. I just have to go 7 a.m., 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun is already here and I just need to look into the sun for 5 minutes and I got my dose of sunlight. Sunlight is very important for your circles, the wake and sleep circles. That's number one. Then for sleeping, try to get a mattress that really fits you because a lot of people are suffering because they don't have the right mattress. The rooms should be cold air, because if the room is too hot, your body temperature won't get down. And during sleep, your body temperature is naturally going down. And if the room is too hot, you won't be able to do that. You can induce it if you take a warmer shower, and this will force your body to reduce temperature. Another thing is if you're still really overwhelmed with a lot of thoughts that start immediately if you go to bed, because there are so many things still to be solved by you, then have like a journal or like something to write down things, and you write your worries on a piece of paper and put it in a box. Yeah, so your subconscious knows, okay, I'm aware of what I need to solve, but I will do it tomorrow. And you don't forget the things you want to solve. That's also to make it clear cut. Others, they finish with a gratitude journal, just maybe 3 experiences of the day that were very, very positive, that you learned something from it, to start on a positive note. And then there is also something like tapping. I think in Germany, German-speaking countries, this is quite known now, that you do this tapping to regulate down your nervous system. There are actually also tapping rituals to find sleep. Yeah, the
For
first
me,
round would be accept myself, that I have difficulties to stay asleep or to fall asleep. You go through the points and then you bring the positive affirmation. It's easy for me to fall asleep. It's easy for me to stay asleep throughout the night. That's an easy, and you can find it online. So just look EFT for sleep, and then you will find very easy tools. I use that also for clients, and I recorded them, this video for them, and it actually helped them.
Um, for me personally, affirmations don't work, but what I understood pretty soon is good sleep is important, enough sleep is important, but for me, rituals do the job. So basically, I get to bed, I get my headphones on, I do some meditation, and then I listen to audiobooks. And as you said, I also have a blank sheet of paper next to my bed, and if I have something to do, I write it down, and that kind of releases me. But I have to tell you, what really makes a difference is listening to the audiobooks. Something completely different from business, completely different from podcasting. That really helps me to come down, especially funny ones.
Yeah, and then I also note that to switch off Wi-Fi during your sleep, and don't have any artificial light in your room. It should be really dark. And if you can't accomplish that, have a blinder over your eyes and really reduce any electronic things. Don't have your mobile phone on Wi-Fi next to your ears. Yeah, I really recommend to have like an alarm clock and leave any electronic devices outside your bedroom. What you can also do during the day, because you said for some people, maybe they start to get refreshed in the afternoon. There is something like a non-sleep protocol, which is called Yoga Nidra. So with this, it normally goes like 15 or 20 minutes, and you scan your body from your toes to your head to your fingers, and the request is always now go to your big thumb of your toes. No, the thumb. No, thumb is this. To your big toe, to your big left toe, and notice it and relax it. And then the first toe is relaxed. And you will come out of it quite refreshed without having a nap. So what some people are doing, they nap during the day. In most cases, not possible. So some companies, they even have a room where people can go. And instead of really taking a deep sleep, you may want to go for this Yoga Nidra. And it really refreshes you. And after that, you may want to do more this brainstorming, divergent thinking, whatever is on your agenda. Yeah, so sleep is very important here.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree here.
Yeah, I could speak about focus. I could also speak about decision making. Where are you up to?
I do believe decision making is a very important part for our audience. We've spoken about focus quite a bit, and if there's interest, reach out to us or comment on this video or podcast wherever you're listening or watching this. Um, then we could talk about focus again. But I personally, I'm more interested in decision making, making good decisions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in decision making, a lot of people think we take rational decisions, which is not true. It's a myth. Our decisions are being made also by our emotions. And there are a lot of studies about it from Antonio Damasio, who had clients and their brain function for emotions was destroyed. So they couldn't perceive emotions in their body anymore. And when they went for a restaurant to select what they want to eat, they were not able to do that. They could cognitively think about it, but there was no emotional drive to make the decision. So decisions are made by emotions. And then with decision making, there is a difference between, do I make the decision out of a conviction or out of an impulse? So conviction is something I firmly hold a belief, and this belief is based on my experiences. Or I can make a decision based off an impulse because I feel like a strong urge, which is mostly unreflective, to act now on it. And behind this is often a fear. A fear it could fail, a fear that I'm not enough for that, fear of the public opinion. And then I feel somehow stuck, yeah, and I just want to overcome that feeling, and then I just make an impulsive decision. Or for me, I do a decision just not to feel what's actually behind it. So I don't allow that feeling to come to the surface and look at it and say, okay, the fear is there. What is actually the fear about? What would be the worst case scenario if that could be true? And if the worst case scenario comes through, do I have the things to handle it? And if I say, yeah, actually, even if the worst case scenario happens, I know how to handle it. And I take I know what to do, and I take then responsibility for it. And with this, I'm not ignoring why I want to make now a fast decision. Yeah, often it's also pressure from stakeholders. Yeah, but then also look again why you feel pressured by them. And this is really to allow feelings to come to the surface and assess, because you can still make a decision even if you realize there is a fear behind. Yeah, because you know what to do. And if you don't know what to do in the worst case scenario, you may have to rethink your decision.
So that is about the emotional influence you have on your decision, and you have to be cautious about what emotions actually influence your decision, that you can really distance yourself and understand in what framework you're doing that.
And sometimes it's not even fear. It's maybe a body budget issue. So Lisa Feldman Barrett, she is very famous for that, yeah, because she says emotions and feelings are constructed. And with this, if you have not taken lunch, if you have not drunk any water during the whole day, you run on a low body budget and you feel maybe irritated. And then these influence your decision making. There are some studies around judges, and they were much more negative in their judgment when they had not eaten. Yeah. So also the condition of your body influences you, how you make a decision. Yeah. That's a very important thing to distinguish if you're doing it out of conviction or out of an impulse. And if you are new as a startup founder, you may not have all the experiences. So on what do you base your decisions? Then to be also open up to failure. So you have a mentor or a sounding board, someone you can reflect your decision making. And of course, there are also, I call it disaster avoidance tools that are more on a constructive side, what you can apply to make better decisions. The first thing, as I said, is more, are you basing it on a conviction, on your experience, or on an impulse? Now, let's go what you can do to make also, to avoid disasters, yeah? So one thing is that you plan, what I already said, plan scenarios. So I want to do that if I make the decision. What's the best case scenario that could happen? And what's the worst case scenario? And if I have the worst case scenario, am I prepared how to deal with it? Yeah. Another one is like invite also other people. Often you may be in a board meeting, and people may have similar beliefs or attitudes towards an issue. To also invite people who are thinking quite differently so that you have different points on the matter. Another one is also prototyping. Yeah, don't develop the finished product. This is again from agile management. Be close to your customer. Develop something that's nearly ready based on market research or whatever, and test it, prototype it before you go in mass production. Of it, yeah. Also see what your competitors are doing. So I had some months back, I had someone. So she was in producing a product for houses. I don't specify it, and they had to automate it, and so they had consultants in. So they automated it in a certain way, but it was still not decided on. And then I asked her, do you know what your competitors are doing? Because she said they have lost tenders in the last months because the other ones, they calculated much, much lower than them. Then I said, have you ever looked how their products look like? And then she said, no. I said, but that's maybe the first thing to see what they're doing. Is their product maybe there's less material in it or other material that makes it much more cost effective before you invest now in a big automated line, and in the end your product may be still more expensive than your competitors. Yeah, so it's like prototyping, but also compare what others are doing and gather more information. And behind that, there was also reluctancy from my client, because she said we spent already so many hours to even develop it with my team. And what you're telling me now is that we have to again go back to the drawing board. I said, you may want to do it. Maybe then the whole automation will be cheaper. And you make sure that after all this, your product is at the same level like your competitor. Otherwise, what benefit would it have?
For me personally, to look at what competitors are doing is also to determine the expectations your customers or your potential customers do have from the product. What what I don't like is, especially in the creator economy, what many do. One talks about one topic and then everybody talks about the same topic. That is something I really avoid. That's why I don't listen to too many podcasts, but you always should have an expectation of what the customers expect. And there always a good source is your competitor products, but also potential substitutes are pretty good to observe.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. So prototyping is good, learning out of setbacks and this divergent thinking. And have somehow a sounding board, have someone you can reflect, because often all these things are only in your head and you're not expressing it to anybody, maybe to your spouse, but to have someone, because if you hear your words that you're speaking out, you also create awareness what's really going on in your head, especially if the other person is reflecting it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So these are like disaster avoidance things you can apply. And the other one are also judgment errors, called cognitive biases.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to find someone, there are several of them. There are dozens of them. So I looked for like 5 that could be interesting for startups. First is the planning fallacy. So you may have underestimated your time and your resources to roll out the project. That also often happens. And advice is that you split it in smaller projects, be more conservative with the time and create also a buffer. Because you may rely on supplies, you rely on other materials or whatever. So be more conservative with your time that you announce. That was in the, when gas shortage came and so many other products were not available. So a lot of, especially in the construction industry, they were delayed because the material was also not there. So planning fallacy. Then there is something like sunk cost fallacy. This is that you still put resources in a project that's already failing. And you don't want to pull out because you said, oh, we already invested into it. Now it doesn't make sense. Now maybe it comes again. Maybe it comes live again, which is really the case. So set a benchmark. When is really a benchmark can be cost, benchmark can be a time, and then exit. So if you reach that benchmark and it has not come into fruition, exit, have an exit strategy.
What we say in Germany is you throw good money after bad money, meaning you already have lost money, but you still keep pouring money in. It's something many people do subconsciously. And if you once understand that human beings have a tendency to make this mistake, it gets easier, but not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So to have like a barrier that you don't want to overgo. And then we have also overconfidence bias. So you may be so convinced about the brilliance of your product that you are not seeing the signs in the market. Or you want to be overconfident because you and your developer team have spent already so much time on it. Yeah. And now you think it's really, really, really great. And maybe the market is already telling you other material, other designs are in, and then you bring it into the market. And therefore, it's always very important to create small market feedbacks, see what's going on, apply agile methods to be very close to your customers before you really roll out a product.
Mhm. What I personally experienced here is, especially in the startup world, you see that quite frequently for the very simple reason somebody has the ideal product in his or her mind, and then
Yeah.
they start building it and keep going at it and keep going at it, and then at one point they realize, oh, there's no market for it, but they burned a lot of money, a lot of lifetime, and maybe also a lot of energy of the employees. So that's why we are always talking about like doing little testing, little experiments, always have this feedback loop in there.
Yeah. And there are also quite a number of leaders who are like swapping very easily. So one day the design should be like this. 2 days later is completely different. And if you have more an agile organization, it will be not the leader to decide. It will be the customer. Yeah. And therefore, in the very beginning, to have a close contact to understand what the client is really looking for, what key aspects the product should have, also helps you. Of course, if you have now a customer who's changing, you need a very good like agile coach or product owner who is capable to talk to the client in a way that is not swapping ideas all the time, because this also burns the team out. Yeah, that's another aspect.
For me personally, it has always been very important to build like your own frame of reference, to develop your own framework. There's a lot of interesting things about that out there. Very popular is, for example, the notion of Jeff Bezos that a team should only be enough people to feed from one large pizza. Admittedly, in the US, the pizzas are a little bit bigger, but it's don't keep your department so big, your team so big, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of very interesting, very thoughtful ideas out there. Help yourself with them, try them out if they work for you or if they feel like they match for what you're thinking, and then you can aggregate over time and develop your own framework. I do believe that's very, very important. You shouldn't not make decisions on just blank sheets.
Yeah, yeah. And it's often, if you're in this brainstorming, there's also this design thinking methodology where you really use the time to develop and everything is possible. You create prototypes, but then you test it again in the market. The prototypes are tested and not the whole product already. So with this, you can really stay clear and close to the market. Another one is they're a little bit similar, the hello effect or empathy bias, that it's with a founder or an investor that let's take an investor because we have spoken about leaders the whole time, like an investor, and you see a very charismatic leader. He's so positive, he's great in really presenting the idea, and you feel really driven into it and you want to be part of it. And then you get sometimes hooked up by the hello effect, because this person seems so sympathetic,
Mhm.
so charismatic, and you may don't see what's actually in the business plan. Yeah. And also
Mm-hmm.
here, try to have like a structured interview with the person you want to invest in. Look at different perspectives, look into their business plan, use your conviction. If this makes sense for you based on your experiences, create the best and worst case scenario, and use really due diligence to
Mm-hmm.
figure out. So to come from the emotion, because you're taken
Mm-hmm.
away by your emotion, because you feel very similar to the person. And it can have even a negative aspect. If there is someone who feels for you so unfamiliar because comes from a different country, looks different, maybe also a bias you have, maybe concerning gender, whatever. And then the hello effect or empathy effect can go into the other direction. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
you're not drawn or you have your bias because it's from wherever the person comes from or gender. And then it's a great business plan, but you don't even look into it because you be pulled away that somehow you don't feel so good with this person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like they have a halo. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And a last one I would like to talk about is this confirmation bias. So that you're looking for information that really affirms what you're thinking. And that's also dangerous. Yeah. So try always to get other informations on top, make A/B testing just to find out, to avoid disasters in decision making.
Yeah, what always worked for me, especially when I had a team, we always designated one person to be the advocatus diaboli, so meaning the person who always comes up with the worst scenarios, what could happen, what could go wrong, and it makes for a lot of interesting discussions. Nobody wanted to do it, so we always have to pick somebody else. But it's very important um, to have somebody who disagrees, just on purpose, to really get the discussion going and really think about your decisions. Some of the worst decisions in my life have been taken by a team who all agreed that this was a good idea. Turn out, not always.
Yeah. And for me, it's when I really liked someone or I felt like, oh, a product is so nice, yeah, from aesthetic point of view, or the person presented him or herself in a good way. So what I do nowadays, I don't make the decision right away. Or, also in sales, sometimes they pressure you decide now, otherwise you have to pay a higher amount. So for me, it's always I time out, and then I let these emotions sink down, and then I clearly think about it. Yeah, then I can also more look into the nuances of something. This is what I have realized what I'm doing. And another thing with this A and B testing, sometimes if you have also a very complicated customer, it's always good not to show them one prototype, maybe two prototypes. Because then if they have two, they can choose for the one they more like. If you only give them one, they can always say no. And there's no alternative what you can show them. That's
Mhm.
also with A and B testing, also A and B prototyping.
Mhm. I see. Yeah, that was also very important for me to give people alternatives. Yeah, that's also um, even sometimes you should also offer the services, or at least if you do a survey, the services of a competitor to see how good you're actually scoring against your competitors. I do see this quite frequently in surveys I'm participating in very large tech companies who try to score themselves against the competition. So don't be afraid to use the competition. Don't be afraid to score yourself against the competition.
Yeah, yeah, great point. Great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I,
agree.
I do believe we're running out a little bit of time, Silke, but fortunately, you are coming back after Easter. We will have another recording, and hopefully, we'll have much more information from you. We can relate it a little bit to real life stories from you or me, and then we should listen to what our audience say.
Yeah. I also have like for your audience a free, how would I call it? A free workbook, I would
Mhm.
tell it. And it's in English and German. And here you see like a summary. There are also worksheets on the topics we're discussing. Maybe in the
Mhm.
last episode, I can say where people can find it or.
Or just shoot me the link, and wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching this, go to our blog, and on our blog you'll find the link.
Yeah, yeah, that's the easiest way because there you have also like case studies, very short case studies that you can relate to the topic, and then also things to work on for yourself. So it's quite practical.
Great. So only thing left for me to say is thank you very much. Looking forward to have you again.
Thank you very much, Jan. It was really a pleasure to be here. It was fun.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.